You may have heard the term, the room is the most important part of your system. But how many audiophiles have you met that you go to their homes and they tell you, oh, the room's the most important thing. And then you look around in the room, there's no treatment, bare walls, flat surfaces everywhere, glass, you name it. Even HiFi reviewers. Some things in life we know are true, but yet we don't give them the attention they deserve until we actually experience them. Like what? We know fire burns if we touch it, but some of us might not be putting as much effort in preventing burns until we actually get a serious burn. Hey, stick to frickin' HiFi. Get off this fire bullshit. All right. Heck, some facts we choose not to believe simply because we haven't experienced them. Pretty sad. Like what? For instance, clean power. Till you experience clean power, are you gonna go and spend thousands of dollars to get clean power? Probably not. And sometimes it's even worse. We see a video, read a couple articles, and we figure, all right, let's see if there's any truth to this. So in the case of clean power, some of us went out, buy some cheap filters, plug them in our outlets, sit down, listen to our system, and realize, what a bunch of bullshit. It's not bullshit. It's probably just because that cheap filter that we purchase is simply not addressing the issues that are going through our lines. Context matters. Like all these other audiophiles, I was exactly the same. The room's the most important thing. Do I know what my system sounds like in another room? Different dimensions? Different treatments? No, I didn't.
Time to find out.
So let's start with the obvious. My speakers. My speakers are DIY, homemade, by me, open baffle speakers using Lee-Song drivers. I use the W15 in the bass region, and I use a full range F15 driver for the mids and the highs. Well, it does more than the mids and the highs. So the W15, I use it from 30 Hertz to 90 Hertz, and the balance is done by the F15. The F15 is driven by a pair of 300B monoblocks or a 211 single-ended Class A amplifier. For this test, I didn't use the 211 single-ended Class A amplifier. Why? Because it weighs a freaking ton. So I used the 300B monoblocks. Much easier to move around. The W15 is a Crown XLS 1002 amplifier driving both W15s. The preamp that manages all of these things is a Melody P1668. Is that it? Is a Melody P1688 signature series. So the Melody P1688 has 3 sets of outputs. You have a balanced XLR output, you have 2 different single-ended outputs, a high gain output single-ended and a low gain. This is a tube amp, tube rectified, which actually use one of Space Tech Labs' external super rectifiers using a 211 tube in it to rectify the current in the preamp, which makes a glorious difference. And as a source, my DAC is my Frankenstein Musical Paradise DAC, MPD2 MK3 Deluxe, which I have upgraded the capacitors, upgraded the fuse, upgraded the tubes, and the battery-powered external clock. More on that later in another video. But what about the cables? Who cares about the cables? Don't worry about the cables. Not saying they don't make a difference. They make a difference. But for the purpose of today, it doesn't matter. I just brought my cables along too. Don't worry about it. And as a power, the Puritan Psm156 with all my power cables. Now let's head over to my buddy Phil's room, who was kind enough to let me use it for a full day and listen to my system.
Sleeping through the hours of a sunny southern day.
No, they're not equal.
Left, right, center. Left, right, center.
It's off a little bit.
Right. Left, right.
Okay, we get it.
Center.
Yeah.
Hola.
Fuck. Man. That is one big soundstage. Wow.
Soundstage is fucking huge. I'm just struggling. The imaging of each instrument and voice looks big.
It's a bit bigger than your system, but it's not. But it doesn't have the effect that it has at my place, where things feel like they're on top of each other because there's no room. Yeah, because there's more space between the speakers now. That's fucked up.
Is what she said.
The tone is on point, I think.
Yeah, man.
Brighten up the day.
This is awesome.
A little something.
Ah, man. Can't go back home now.
It's your
So young and so fine.
And now I'm starting to see some, there's one downside now. The reflections in the room, I think, are causing a little bit of haziness sometimes in the highs.
No, it's the positioning from the depth perspective of the different instruments and how the voice is overlaid. I find it's thin. It's a little bit thinner. But I'm wondering if it's not the positioning or the room, the treatment, something like that could maybe make it bigger. But it's just very like soothing to listen to. It's very relaxing.
who are you trying to fool?
Like it's more engaging. Like
Gonna lay my
the presentation of the voice, the instruments are bigger too, much bigger.
Soundstage was much larger, maybe 30% larger, very noticeable. The size of the instruments, the size of the singer in the soundstage also had a little bit of a bigger size, bigger image than in my room. The spacing between all these items, even though they were large, was significantly better than my room. I'd say that was like 70% better than in my room. The definite advantage of giving these open baffle speakers more space. The depth of the soundstage, that was very obvious. I think the soundstage was maybe a third of the depth of what I feel like in my room. You didn't feel like that front wall was gone and pushed all the way back. So the resolution was not quite as tight and as sharp as it can be in my room. But in Phil's room, I think because of the first reflection points were not treated, creating a little bit of a softer image. The loss of that focus made me feel like the soundstage was a little bit less transparent. Like things didn't feel like they were hanging in the air as much, and thus micro detail, there was micro detail. It just wasn't as, they weren't as refined as they were in my room. So first thing is, more space for your speakers, the better. My treatment in my room, at least on my primary and secondary reflection point, is working, is making a big difference. And what would I want to change in my room now? Because of a structural beam, I have a support post underneath that beam, which is in the center of in the middle of the room, slightly off center of my seating area, which is kind of restricting my speaker positioning and sitting area to all roughly half the size of the room. So I'm not using the whole advantage of my room. At the time when I built my room, costs of getting an engineer to come in here to reinforce my support beam or change it to an I-beam so I could remove this post was just not in the cards. And I mean, it would have cost several thousands of dollars to do. But now that I heard the difference of what it can do, when the time comes, I'll get some prices, I'll get some quotes, and I'll see what the real deal is to remove this post, because I would love to be able to use the whole 25 feet deep by 16 feet wide so that I could have the speakers a good 10 feet away from the front wall, a good 10 feet apart from each other, and I could sit about a good 10 to 15 feet away from them to maximize that soundstage. Combined with the treatment that I have, that would make for such a glorious soundstage. It would be huge like at Philips, but deep like it is here, full of micro details, sharp focus, clean, gorgeous air around all the instruments. But now I know. And then I get to choose when I'm going to spend that money to get that fixed. Thanks for tuning in. See y'all soon.